Morning, Mr. Lewis guilty as no a high-profile reporter just got fired in the blink of an eye. The reason making shocking comments about Caitlin Clark's stalker situation that left the entire sports world furious. While Clark was dealing with a dangerous stalker who drove across states to find her, this reporter had the nerve to demand something unthinkable. Stick around, this story will make your blood boil. So it looked like two reporters is on the fire for their comments about Caitlin Clark's stalker situation. God, let's dive deep into this disturbing situation that's been making headlines. Caitlin Clark, the basketball sensation who's been breaking records left and right, recently dealt with something no one should ever experience: a stalker who drove all the way from Texas to Indiana to harass her. Before we get into the reporter drama, let me paint you a picture of just how serious the situation was. This stalker wasn't just sending a few messages. We're talking about hundreds of obsessive tweets. He would spam Clark's social media repeatedly, posting things like "we are in love" and "you're super smart." The level of harassment was so intense that X, formerly Twitter, had to step in and take down his account. And there was a guy that was stalking her that actually flew to Indianapolis and was sending her the tweets, and she was so scared she had to change her identity in person. So that guy actually went to court, and this is wild. Take a listen to this man in court. Morning, Mr. Louis guilty. No.
And there was a guy that was stalking her that actually flew to Indianapolis and was sending her the tweets, and she was so scared she had to change her identity in person. So that guy actually went to court, and this is wild. Take a listen to this man in court.
Morning, Mr. Lewis.
Guilty.
No.
Guilty.
Sir, this is initial hearing. You have a right to remain silent, and I expect you to exercise that. Okay, this is just telling you what the charges are. You do not listen. I'll give you a chance to talk. Not your time.
Throw me the bookie.
Stop talking. You have a right to know what your charges are. Your charge.
This is initial hearing. Oh, you have a right to remain silent, and I expect you to exercise that. Okay, this is just telling you what the charges are. You do not listen. I'll give you a chance to talk. Not your time. Show me the bookie. Stop me the bookie. You have a right to know what your charges are. You charged with stalking as a level 5 felony. Looking at the evidence that's come to light, it's clear this was isn't just your typical overzealous fan. The police reports show a pattern of escalating behavior that started on social media but quickly turned into something much more sinister. This guy wasn't just content with online harassment. He actually packed up his car and drove across multiple states to find Clark. Now, Clark did exactly what experts recommend. She reported this to the police immediately. She didn't wait around. She didn't stay quiet. She took action, and guess what? It worked. The authorities arrested the guy from Texas who was behind all this harassment. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. Cause remember, they went to the hotel the first time and gave him like a warning. He had to be kind of getting a little crazy in the warning. Cause how you walk into the judge like, "Throw me the book, throw me the book." Guilty. Yes, I'm here to check in. He might have a boo in there. Why we wasting taxpayer dollars? He's saying, "I'm all right, man, I'm guilty. Let's speed this up. I want to go back to sleep." They going to say he was very erratic. One of the TV stations in Indianapolis said he was very erratic during his first court appearance. He was very calm. He knew exactly what all I saw was accountability. Okay, that's all I saw and heard. I watched that video like 8 times. The court documents revealed that this wasn't just some random decision to drive to Indiana. This guy had been planning this for weeks. He'd been mapping out Clark's potential locations, trying to figure out her daily routine, and even attempted to find out where she lived. We're talking about someone who was completely obsessed and potentially dangerous. When the police finally caught up with him, they found some pretty disturbing stuff in his car. He had maps marked with possible locations where Clark might be, screenshots of her social media posts printed out, and even some personal items he claimed were gifts for her. This is the kind of stuff you see in crime documentaries, not something you expect to happen to a college basketball star. The real kicker: this guy actually tried to justify his actions in court. He claimed he was just a passionate fan who wanted to support Clark's career, but the evidence told a different story. The hundreds of unanswered messages, the obsessive tracking of her movements, the cross-country stalking trip. This was clearly harassment, plain and simple. What's really important to understand here is how Clark handled this situation. Despite being in the middle of an incredible season, breaking records left and right, she had to deal with this terrifying situation behind the scenes, but she didn't let it stop her. She kept playing amazing basketball while taking the necessary steps to protect herself. The basketball community initially rallied around Clark. Coaches, players, and fans all showed their support. Security was tightened at games, and people were on high alert. It seemed like everyone understood the seriousness of the situation. Well, almost everyone. This brings us to the media coverage of the incident. Most reporters handled it with the sensitivity it deserved. They reported the facts, emphasized the importance of taking stalking seriously, and respected Clark's privacy. But then we had this NBC reporter, Natalie Esquire, who decided to take a different approach. Caitlyn is not a victim as a rookie, but then when you also elbow people...
Caitlyn is not a victim as a rookie. But then when you also elbow people and then you keep on talking all the way down the court, like, you're not a victim. So then for you to go into the post game and be like, yeah, well, I don't want to retaliate. Like, I know people are going to come for me and I just got to let it be what it is. But the people that retaliate are the ones that get in trouble.
Like, Caitlyn, you're weaponizing how people view you and are talking about you when you say something like that. F around and find out. Kennedy is an isolated incident. That little shoulder bump, It was not that serious. You fell down. The first thing you did is, and you looked to the damn refs to give you what? That's what happened. And you look, and that's what she always does, right? She's always falling to the floor, and then people acting like it's mad hard. It's like, pay attention to what she did in college. I would say that her coach did not do a good job preparing her for the physicality of what was to come and what to expect in the...
And you're weaponizing how people view you and are talking about you when you say something like that. F around and find out. Kennedy is an isolated incident. That little shoulder bump, it was not that serious. You fell down. The first thing you did is, and you look to the damn refs to give you what happened, and you look, and that's what she always does, right? She's always falling to the floor, and then people acting like it's mad hard. It's like, pay attention to what she did in college. I would say that her coach did not do a good job preparing her for the physicality of what was to come and what to expect in the WNBA during what should have been a straightforward discussion about stalking and athlete safety. Esquire made comments that left her co-hosts and viewers stunned. Instead of focusing on the seriousness of stalking or praising Clark for handling the situation properly, she suggested that Clark should speak publicly about her experience. Now let's break down why this comment was so problematic. First off, we're talking about an ongoing legal case. Any lawyer would tell you that victims should be careful about making public statements during active investigations, but more importantly, no victim of stalking should ever be pressured to share their trauma with the public. The co-host tried to save the situation, immediately jumping in to point out that this isn't something anyone should be expected to discuss publicly. You could see the discomfort on their faces. They tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground, but the damage was already done. What makes this even more concerning is that this wasn't Esquire's first questionable comment about Clark. Looking back at her previous coverage, there's been a pattern of subtle criticism and unnecessary jabs. It's like she had some sort of issue with Clark's success and was looking for ways to undermine it, but the sports world wasn't having it. Within hours of the show airing, social media exploded with criticism. Former athletes started sharing their own experiences with stalking and harassment, explaining why Esquire's comments were so harmful. Sports journalists from other networks called out the insensitivity of suggesting a stalking victim needs to speak publicly. The response wasn't just from the media either. Fans started digging up Esquire's previous comments about Clark, creating compilation videos showing a pattern of negative coverage. College basketball coaches spoke up about the importance of protecting their players' privacy and mental health. Even organizations that work with stalking victims released statements condemning the suggestion that victims should have to share their stories publicly. This whole situation opened up a larger conversation about how female athletes are treated in the media. It's not just about the stalking incident, it's about the expectations placed on women in sports. They're expected to be incredible athletes, perfect role models, and now apparently they are supposed to share their traumatic experiences for public consumption. The backlash continued to grow as more people watched the clip and realized just how inappropriate the comments were. Parents of young athletes spoke up about their concerns. They pointed out how comments like these might discourage young women from reporting stalking or harassment, fearing they'll be pressured to talk about it public. NBC couldn't ignore the growing outrage. Their social media channels were flooded with angry comments, and sports journalists from other networks were calling for action. Within 48 hours of the show airing, NBC made their decision. Esquire was fired. They released a statement saying they take the safety and privacy of athletes seriously, and comments suggesting victims should speak publicly